Hey everyone, coming at you live from activity period. There's lots of things happening in the room, probably some TikTok making and whatnot. But anyway, try to bear with me as I get you guys through these notes on argument strategies. So in your journal, make sure you start a new page. Put the date on there. It's November 20th, and write down argument strategies at the top. We're getting ready to talk about how authors and speakers structure their arguments and how you can more effectively implement these strategies when you're speaking and when you're talking. Some of you are very good at arguing. Some of you I have argued with personally. But make sure that when we're arguing, if we're an effective arguer, we aren't just using intimidation and we aren't just they're laughing at me in the back now as I talk to you. Anyway, make sure that you're not just intimidating people, calling names, or saying that you don't want something. I love you when I say this, but people typically don't care about your preferences, especially when you're trying to make a point. So check this out. In your journal, these are the terms you need to know. The first thing I want you to do is write down claim, and claim is an author's position. The first thing you need to do when you set up any argument is you need to take a clear stance, yes and no, for the argument. One common argument that students write papers about is the idea of opening or closing campus. And if you go to tonight's school board meeting, you can't just present to the board during public comment, hey, my name is student and I'm a freshman at Lawrenceville High School and I would like to have open campus because I would like to have open campus. That sounds really fun. That argument isn't going to fly very well with the school board. So what you need to do is you need to make a claim, which is where you would say that I would like to have open campus lunch, and so you've committed to a yes, and then you need to offer up some support or some reasons for that argument based on context. So what that means is if I make an argument to have have open campus lunch at school, I need to argue how it's going to increase student productivity because students who leave for lunch are happier students, they're more refreshed when they come back, and they're going to be more focused on their work. I might make an argument that it would be financially good for the community to have students spending more money on lunches and at the restaurants in our community. That 1% sales tax comes right back to the school. I might make an argument that in terms of health and wellness, the small cafeteria lunches aren't necessarily enough fuel for our students who are having early lunch and then they're working jobs after school or playing sports and not getting home until very late in the evening. Some of them are very hungry. And so now I've done what I need to do. I've chosen my claim, which is that we should have open campus lunch, and then I have supported that by offering up specific reasons. So the next thing I need to do is I need to add some details. And so in a real argument or debate, I would make sure that I would use some research here. I would give some actual facts, actual statistics, real information, and real life examples for that. Then the next thing you need to do is have a conclusion. The cool thing about this is if I have these kinds of arguments, I can just as easily argue against the claim that I've taken. So let's look at the other side of the argument. Let's say that we want to continue having continue having closed campus lunch or closed campus once it's done. So the first thing I need to do is I need to say we need to keep campus closed during lunch hour. And then I need to offer up some support and reasons based on context for that. So I might say that, it's a safety issue. Students leaving for lunch are more likely to drive quickly and get into an accident. For evidence, I could pull up some traffic records from when we had open campus lunch and show how at that time there were more students getting into wrecks during lunch. I could offer health and wellness as a concern again, and I can talk about nutrition. Students trying to eat on a budget might not do a very good job choosing good fuel, and they might opt for food that is cheap but not necessarily healthy for them. I could offer up an argument in finance. It's not going to be good for families. They're going to spend more on lunches there than they would spending lunches in a cafeteria. And I could argue academically it may lead to an increase in truancy and absent in the class period right after lunch. So make sure that in your journal you have this, that a claim is an author's position, support is the reasons for the position based on context, and we're going to talk about context in a minute, evidence, which is facts, specific details, and examples, and then finally a conclusion that sums up the claim and the evidence, and it may call the reader to action. In the example of open campus lunch, you would make sure and try to persuade the school board how to decide based on what it is that you are wanting to accomplish. So here are some context. This isn't a complete list, but these are some common arguments that you can use, common supports you can use to support any argument you're making. So go ahead and pause the video, take a second to get all of these written down in your journal. And then when you're done, close your journal so Mr. Davis knows that you're done. And then we'll move on to the next thing. All right, so here's what you're going to do with this. We're going to do some work in our workbook. So we need to go to page 186. I'm going to pull it up online so you guys can see it. On page 186, there's 4 vocabulary questions, and so you need to answer those questions. They're multiple choice. just fill in the blank. So go ahead and pause the video, answer those questions. So now that you've completed the questions, let's look through these answers a little bit more carefully. Chances are, if you didn't know what these words mean, you probably have heard another word that sounds very similar. So the first word in the word bank is empathy. And empathy sounds like the word sympathy. Sympathy is when you feel sorry for someone. But empathy takes that a little bit further. Empathy is when you know that how someone feels because you've experienced the same thing yourself. So in a really poor example, if you know somebody whose dog has died, you feel sorry for them because they've lost a pet, and that's very sad. But if you're a person who's experienced losing a pet, you know how they feel a little bit better than somebody who's never had a pet or never lost a pet. And so that's empathy. So number 4, the answer is empathy. Empathy is the ability to understand what a person is feeling. The next word in your list is synchronization, which sounds like synchronize. Synchronization, any word ending in T-I-O-N is always a noun, so that's just the noun form. That one obviously goes with number 2. I was impressed with the synchronization of the swimmers' movements. I think that's really, I don't know, it's really interesting to watch synchronized swimmers. It's like dancing within the water, and that's, I don't know, it's hard to imagine, but synchronization is when you do things at the same time. The next word on your list, actually the next 2 words, are contagion and cognition. And if you were to look at those words and read them out loud, you might mispronounce them because they look very similar. Contagion, of course, sounds like contagious, which means catching. Germs are contagious. The contagion is the thing that is caught. And so number 1, when Catherine came to class with the flu, the contagion spread quickly. And then cognition is the other one. Cognition sounds like conscious or cognizant, which just means aware. Conscious, of course, means awake and alert. And so cognition is like having thought processes occur in your mind. And so that is the answer for number 3. Humans can think through more difficult problems because they have a higher capacity for cognition than other primates, which leaves implication for the last one. What is the implication of the new dress code on outfits for picture day? Implication simply means outcome. And so like, what was the outcome of the new dress code on outfits for picture day? Chances are it would have changed it. So the next thing I need you guys to do today, and this is due today, I'm going to check these when you guys get back at the beginning of the hour on Friday. I need you guys to read the article, Monkey See, Monkey Do, Monkey Connect, on pages 187 to 193 of the textbook. And what's cool about this is about how we are connected at some kind of an unconscious subliminal level with other people. So I want you guys to think about this, and if you want to have a little bit of conversation, you can pause the video after each of these next couple of questions. But who do you know, or who have you heard that has a contagious laugh, and what happens when somebody else starts laughing nearby? Have you ever yawned because another person near you was yawning? So those things, just like in the video that we watched at the beginning of this unit where we were talking about yawn contagion, those are things that connect us. This article also talks a little bit about how we learn to do things. Chances are, at some point when you were little, you had you played like you were talking or texting on a phone. Chances are you played with a kitchen set and acted like you were cooking. Maybe you had toy tools and you pretended to fix something. Chances are at some point you pretended to drive a car. And so all of these things are things that our grown-ups do and that we imitate to learn and grow and to become adults. And watching people is definitely how we learn. So this article was about all of those things. While you read, here's your homework. While you read, I need you to grab a highlighter. And I want you to highlight the author's claims that he makes in this article and some of the reasons that he gives to support his claims. So he makes several claims. He makes one really big claim throughout the article, and that's the claim that we are all connected. But find places where he talks about that connection, and then find some reasons that he gives. So highlight those as you read, and then when you're done, answer questions 1 through 3 on page 193, and then you're done with that. The other thing to be aware of is you guys still have the essay over Big Fish. It's the theme analysis. It is due on Friday. You won't have much time to work in class once you're done with this, but make sure that you get it done. It looks like 3 of you have turned it in, which is awesome. Make sure that you guys are working on that. Remember that the question here is that I need you guys to find one of the themes that you think is really present and important in the movie Big Fish, explain what that theme is, define what it looks like, and then give examples of how you see it in the movie, and then also explain how it fits into real life outside the movie. So how does this theme apply to us? Remember from your theme notes, you might want to look back at those that a theme is a lesson that not only applies to the characters in the story, but also is one that we can put in our life. One last thing, if you guys want to listen to this story instead of read it, this article today, remember that you can always listen to all of the things that we read in class by clicking on the unit. Yours looks a little bit different. I've got the teacher edition. You guys should have 3 dashes up here that says content in unit 3. So find the story, Monkey See, Monkey Do, Monkey Connect. Like I said, yours I think is going to be black, and it's going to look a little bit different. But go down to where it says read, and then open it, and then grab some headphones, and then click play audio, and that will automatically start an audio version of the books. You guys can listen to it while you read along. And like I said, you can listen with headphones, or if Mr. Davis will allow you to play it out loud, that's another way that you guys can consume this content. So just to recap, today, read Monkey See, Monkey Do, Monkey Connect. Highlight examples of claims and reasons that you see in this author's article. And then finally answer questions 1 through 3, page 193. Don't forget to finish your essay by Friday. I'll see you then. Thanks.